Hi everyone, we're here at the Bydło Conservatory of Music and we have an amazing concert lined up for you tonight.
These live performances are made possible by ticket sales. We encourage you to make a donation online in lieu of purchasing a ticket.
Your contribution also helps us with instrument repair, ensemble touring, bringing guest artists to campus, purchasing music, and enhancing our classroom technology.
So please either scan the QR code or click the link in the description.
Alright, it's almost time for the show, so grab a seat, or rather, your comfiest spot on the couch, and thank you for supporting us here at the Bydło Conservatory of Music.
We'll probably take a minute to gather. Sounds good. Oh yeah, it's good. Oh great, yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Well, thank you so much for coming out this afternoon. My name is Dominic Cheli. I'm looking forward to playing some music for you first of all, and then working with two wonderful students following. The first piece in the program is by a composer, Tomaso Vitali. This is a piece that I arranged for the solo piano. Originally, it's for violin and piano, so I'm excited to present this, this new arrangement of this Chaconne, which is based on a bass line and is repeated over 50 times across this piece. So please enjoy. So the next selection on the program is a work by Johannes Brahms, 118 number 2, his Intermezzo. And this piece is really one of the great masterpieces, I would say, of the piano literature. It's one of his last pieces that he would have written. And this set of Opus 118 would have been dedicated to Clara Schumann, which would have been one of his great and most dearest friends throughout his entire life, over half a century by that time in the 1890s. And indeed, this piece was later, the dedication was taken away for unknown reasons, but we can still kind of have that sort of insight into music of this period, being Brahms looking back on a life, one of nostalgia, bittersweetness, and as I like to say, this piece in A major, he makes a major key sound just so very sad. So I hope you enjoyed this Intermezzo in A major. for this final selection is Pictures at an Exhibition, which I'm sure all of you have heard at one point. I know when I was a kid, I first heard it for the orchestral version by Maurice Ravel, the arrangement of that matter. And it was a little bit later that I found out originally it was for solo piano, and that's kind of when I knew I had to be a pianist, because I had to get my hands into this, because I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I enjoyed music, but I struggled a little bit with like Beethoven symphonies. But then when I heard Pictures and I could see all these different characters and these different, Baba Yaga and the Great Gate and more, that's what really sparked my imagination and really connected the storytelling aspects really with music. So I'm looking forward to sharing this selection with you. As many of you probably know, there's a very, very famous tune, the Promenade. What's very important for us to listen to is how that develops and varies across the piece. That's the psychological underpinning of the work. This would have been dedicated in memory of Victor Hartmann, an artist that Mussorgsky knew. And so literally when he was walking around his friend's memorial with paintings all around, if you've ever been to a gallery, you know that when you see a painting, you're affected by it. So sometimes you see a painting and you're a little saddened. The melody's transformed. Sometimes you're trying to forget that very melody, and sometimes, like in later on in the Con mortuis lingua Latin, the melody, this promenade, is actually transformed into a Gregorian chant for the left hand. So this melody is going to be all throughout. It's Mussorgsky representing himself walking with his gait, and I hope that you enjoy all these different characters and scenes in Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. for listening. And we'll take a little break, and then looking forward to the students coming up soon. So, how are we doing on time? Maybe like a few minutes, and then we'll start.
Spectacular.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So in a moment, we'll move into the masterclass portion of the program. Just a couple of quick announcements. First of all, please move forward to the front of the auditorium where you'll hear much better the interaction between the student and the master teacher. At the end of the masterclass, we're leaving about 10 minutes of time for Q&A, and Mr. Cheli will also speak about his work with tone-based piano.
Yes.
I'm sure many of you know about that, so be sure to stay. So we'll take a quick moment to come up. Piano students, be sure to sign in for your attendance. And Mr. Cheli needs no introduction. You can read in his bio, but thank you so much. We're so honored to have you.
Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you.
First 4 rows, first audience.
I think it's fine, actually.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm glad to. This is a lot. It's a nice piano. I enjoy playing. Is that silver? Which one is that? This is silver. Yeah. It's got some bonds in there. It's a warmer sound than this one. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so it's cool. And you got a third one too. It's neat. Okay. When you're not doing stuff, I'll just do what you have here, and I'll. Okay, sounds good. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Let's see. I don't think I've ever played a recital and done a masterclass right after before, so this will be a first. Yeah. Who's playing the Rachmaninoff? They here today, right now? The Prelude? Stepped out to warm up or something, or yeah. Neat. Very good. So do you guys all know the pictures? You guys have all heard that before, is that right? Or any first timers on Mussorgsky? Listening? No? Good, you guys are well listened. That's important. I'm sorry? Oh, you guys played it? Yeah? Which instrument? Here. Oh, trombone. Yeah, there's some, especially in the Catacombs, there's some good brass parts there. Yeah, that's cool. Very nice.
Section, actually.
Yeah, on the piano, right? It sounds different. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah, it's a hard piece. Yeah. It's hard for orchestra too, you know. So I just wish I had the big, big gongs at the end of the piece. I'm just trying to get the piano to sound like what the orchestra can. Well, it's interesting because Mussorgsky would never have heard the orchestral version in his lifetime. It would have been done after he passed away. So he only ever heard the piano version. So yeah, I guess we can get started, perhaps. Yeah, if you want. Rachmaninoff, yeah? Nice. Would you like this order? Oh, sure, why not? I also brought one just in case, but...
Yeah, you can just
What edition do you use? Do you know?
It's just IMSLP.
That's okay. There's actually a lot of good scores there. And yeah, but why don't you come on up? Okay. Welcome to the stage. Or is there we go. Awesome, bravo, that sounded terrific. So, I mean, obviously, you don't seem to have much technical trouble with a piece as hard as this one. And you seem built for Rachmaninoff. You got big hands, you got great power and everything. So I really enjoyed your performance quite a bit. I think, you know, in a few minutes, I'm going to tell you a few things I think about, and I'm also curious if you have any questions for me about this piece. But in general, the one thing that we want to think about is this low B flat, you know, this like Russian bell that we've got throughout the entire work. So the thing is, you get such a great sound from it so often that it starts becoming a little more nondescript. I think if I asked you, I said, which B flat is the most important one, could you tell me by chance?
I'd like to think it's the lower one.
Oh, yeah, but of all of those low ones, yeah, there's like 20, 25 or so, you know, having a prioritization of which one, you know, for me, like, it could be, you know, I haven't played this in a while, but it could be perhaps like, you know, the Return, that one, you know, over here perhaps, but that's a decision that really we want to make. The ending is going to be that low B flat. The person could say, well, the last B flat should be the most important one, but that one's going to be important because of the timing. The fact that we've got, you know, this kind of like, you know, we've got those quarter note, really profound accents. That's going to be important anyway. But I do think that throughout this piece, we should have a decision about like which one's more important, because they all sounded very important. So that's something maybe for you to think a little bit about in terms of pacing yourself, because right from the beginning, I had awesome B flat, and I had awesome B flat the entire time, but I want even more awesome B flat at some point, you know what I mean? So in other words, saving your reserves a little bit longer on that, because this is such an, you know, these last three notes of the piano, bottom three, are so important, and we have to know how to like manage them, yeah? So like even from this very opening, you know, he writes forte, he's got some low B flats. I would actually voice more to the thumb at the opening to kind of shy away from giving everything away too soon. I know a lot of people like to blast away the very first note. I would maybe caution against that. And because again, from the very beginning, you're giving us like a perspective of dynamicism. In other words, the dynamics of the piece. And if you give us this perspective and then later on you do that, that's really exciting. And I want you to be able to do that, you know, at a pivotal moment, such as the return of the theme. Yeah. So like, could you play the opening for me? And I know there's a low B flat in the opening, but let's focus a little bit more on hiding it. I'm not saying to play softer, but just voice a little more to your thumb. Yeah. Think of the B flat in the opening being more about resonance than actually coming forward. Another good way, I mean, whenever Rachmaninoff writes this kind of music, it reminds me exactly of course, you know, that theme. And the difficulty of that little entrance is the idea that we should practice just doing this, just the F. You know, just practicing this ominous incoming, you know, bass note. And similarly, we could do that here. I'm not that loud yet, but that B flat, this low one, we want to be considering in the same way the bells of Rock 2 approach us. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's going to make this piece a lot more compelling, because at this point, I don't see any technical problems with what you're doing. It's just these extra musical things that are going to be even more impactful for us. Such as, you actually did it very nicely the second time around, but whenever he has the, you know, da-da-da-tam, whenever he has that kind of theme, it's really important that in Rachmaninoff, when he writes accents, we never rush through them. Accents in Rachmaninoff are always about not rushing and really pronouncing them, da-da-da-da. And you did it very well on the second time. So I loved the first time as well to have that. And that also translates to like these fives, you know, with all the accents. When we get to there, again, the first time, you might have been a little excited, but it was a little fast. And I was impressed at how fast you played it, but it should be more of like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. You know, the five should really be brought out, and almost like an accordion, you need to be pushing out that beat. You need to make that beat bigger. You did that better in the second time as well. So I just want to point these out, that the accents are not to be shied away from. And then the other thing that I want to look at is, in this piece, in the middle section, obviously the left hand has the melody, right? But there's moments for us to create more landscape in this prelude. And for Rachmaninoff, it comes from the idea of voicing. So, you know, it's kind of like, You know, in Rock 2, that's a good example. I just played it pretty ordinarily. In other words, I played my voicing. But if you do something like, I'm separating the bass and the treble more so, and I'm trying to create more of a stereo effect. So similarly, when we have these drops, like in that section right there, I can have more pinky and less of other things to create that farther type of landscape sound. Your sound was a little bit more like, it was a little bit more just all compact, I would say. But I want to separate that voicing here. So I wonder if we can try this now. Can you start from somewhere on this page? And when we get to this drop, dropping is less about dynamic. You do drop dynamic, but I want you to change your voicing. Because the voicing is what's going to exemplify the dynamic even greater. So pinky, pinky, pinky. Left hand pinky a little bit. Everything else much less, okay? And then we'll bring, like an orchestra, we'll bring the violas and everything else up, the middle parts, as we get more compact into there. Does that make sense? Yeah. You want to give it a try, wherever's good for you? I'll just put my score here so you can, top of the page, and try to get that drop with the voicing if possible. Can you try from? Yeah, so I do think that, yeah, it's better, I would say. Actually, I'm just going to flip this. It's better, but you could take a little bit more time to really bring that voicing out. I just want that to pop out a bit more. I'm still hearing a little bit too much of the inner voices. And sometimes when we're practicing voicing like this, we need to, in the Russian style of practicing, we need to go exaggerated in our practice. We need to do this. You see I'm really exaggerating right now. I'm playing everything really soft, and I'm really bringing out that pinky a little bit too much. It sounds ugly. But can you do that for me? Because that's going to be how we get closer to that voicing. Can you exaggerate the voicing a little bit slower? Yeah, so for example, like I heard right now, I heard some of these. All I want is for them. I just want that, actually. And then they come together. Yeah, and then from here, now it gets back into the more compact style. But if you practice like this a few more times, I guarantee your voicing is going to get better because we're exaggerating it. And then we exaggerate a little bit less, and then we'll get closer. Can you try it again, but exaggerate a little bit less the voicing? Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing is that our pinky is singing now, and then instead of just forcing the pinky louder and louder in this next crescendo, we can bring everything else up. And that's going to actually create the crescendo rather than just more power. It's going to be about voicing to create this particular crescendo. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's already sounding a lot better. And the sound you're getting now with this balancing of the pinky and the left hand, even at a slow tempo, for me, it's this more wistful, more nostalgic type of sound instead of kind of a constant power. You know, there are moments, these oases of sound that we can find, and I think this is one of them. I mean, he doesn't write it there. He writes no dynamics, but I do think sometimes we have to go off color, off harmony, and make some decisions. And you dropped earlier, so it tells me that you do think this place is also a sensitive one. And then when we get to this next part with all this, so when we get here as well, I would love it to be less notey. I know it's so hard to play, but more about the pinkies, and ideally, I want all of the middle notes to be more of an effect than being any kind of melodicism. I just want to have pretty much just this. And then the first melodic note I really want. And I
just want that to be the only melodic note that really comes out. Everything else needs to be totally textural, just like nature, just wind and rain and this and that, until the tenor, until that singer comes. Can you try that for me? Again, this is a voicing consideration. This stuff up here, try to keep it bright, but not too melodic, you know, not too singing and rich, but try to keep it bright, and then have the richness come from the thumb of the left hand. Can you try getting into this? Sounds already a lot better. You know, and the secret of like, you know, these melodic, you know, figures in the left hand and more, the secret really comes down to making sure that the piano's ringing. So in other words, that sound is vibrating, yeah? And more importantly, you need to be listening to it. One of the dangers sometimes I felt in this is that you sometimes were listening and then suddenly your right hand distracted you. But we need to be listening like listening, you know, to it. And always listening to how the sound is ringing. And if you don't hear it ringing, everything else is too loud. That's always kind of our benchmark, yeah? So that's really going to be important. For this entire section, you obviously can do it. What I'm basically asking you to do is 10% more voicing. It's just 10%, but it would make a big, big difference. But does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. It's already much better when you're demonstrating. Another thing that we want to make sure to look at is this is just more of a specific thing in this piece, is these things could just pop out a little bit more. Because there's a lot of textural back and forth, and we need to do ta-tam, ta-tam, ta-tam. We need that stuff just to pop immediately out. So when he writes tenuto, and when Rachmaninoff writes tenuto, he really wants it to be heard, and tenuto is different from accents in Rachmaninoff. Tenuto in Rachmaninoff, he often is using for inner voices. He's using it to bring out inner voices, as I'm sure you're well aware. And what I would love is for the tenuto here to feel different from that exact same chord up an octave with an accent. And so tenuto here means, think about it being a little bit more melodic, ta-ta, more flat type of accent. And then this is a ta-ta, a pointier accent is the traditional version. Can I hear somewhere around here, if that's possible? And I also drew a bracket right here because this is awesome, everything leading up to here, but we really need to, ta-ta, we need to really establish that a little bit more separately, okay? Can you try, it's hard to start. Is there a good place to start for you?
Anywhere on.
You want to start at the top of the page? Okay. So like this B flat for me is a pretty big deal. So I would really go to that. I mean, you could even like maybe even do like a hand crossing over, you know, like do that kind of thing. And whenever you cross over with your hand, I recommend using 3-2, like that, to really get this kind of martellato type of thing. Because I think this return, you could definitely take some time. Something like that, yeah? And just take a little bit of time for that jump in your left hand to let your hand. But this could be a nice dramatization where it's like, you suddenly step up and the audience is like, whoa, okay, this is another level you've been saving in reserve. This is much better. I think you could pedal more. Your pedaling's a little bit too clean. In other words, with all this stuff, I need to hear those actually lasting until the next one. I'm hearing a little bit of this, and it's kind of coming away, but I would pedal more to connect these motives. You know, the thing is, anyone can get away with pedaling more if they have great voicing. If you have very good voicing and bringing out the right things and keeping can pedal more, create more resonance, it'll sound richer, and it'll actually be easier to play as well. But if you're playing not great voicing, well, that's when you have to pedal better because there's too many things coming out and the pedal. So could you try pedaling a little bit more and just listening to the ringing of these little horn calls of sort? You start again from earlier? That's already looking pretty impressive. Now the thing is, if you want to get a real bell sound on the piano, it's not going to be like this, and that's what you just did. So if you've got a gong or something, the way you need to get it is you need to like bounce off of it. You need to come off of it. So when you play big chords, they always have to be staccato with pedal, and then you're going to get that kind of vibrant effect. So I noticed that when you played that, it was into the piano instead of like exploding out of the piano. So make sure that you really rip that note out of the keyboard, and that's what's going to give you that. You want to try that one more time?
Same spot?
Yeah. So basically, pedaling-wise, I would literally pedal from that chord to the next. And if this is too loud, if this is too notey, it's too loud. All these things could be like rather softer. Yeah. All these fast notes. I just want to hear ta-ta. The thing about Rachmaninoff is, if you bring out the longer notes and you make the smaller notes less significant, it's actually more exciting, and it feels like this behemoth that's building, rather, to this monumental explosion. So I just want less notes, more architecture, and more pedal to connect that. Okay? Can we try from maybe top of the page one more time? Yeah, I mean, that's already better. And again, with that last note, though, it's just a question of practicing it and getting better at just like really fast speed of attack, fast release. In some ways, it might sound percussive in a different part of the instrument. When you're dealing with the big gong, like down there, you really need to get off of that. Yeah, get off of that surface to get that sound, really, really bustling. But yeah, I think that's all terrific. And just one thing about the ending, this G flat's very important. Just make sure I didn't quite hear it brought out quite enough. It's really important because we're very tonal. And then this is the colorization. That's something very important to bring out. But in general, really enjoyed your performance a lot. Do you have any questions for me?
I guess just pedaling in general.
Mm-hmm.
Something
Questions about, yeah.
Yeah, especially the second theme.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mean starting from like around here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I discussed it with my teacher last lesson actually.
Yeah.
Before I was like trying to pedal each harmonic change, and then that was too much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Too much, you mean?
It's mainly on these big rolled chords that I find it hard to like.
Right.
Make it smooth.
Yeah. In general, with these big rolled chords, what you want to be doing is you do want to pedal after you get to that primary note, but of course it's hard with the bass line, right? Let's see here. I mean, like right there, for example, the let's see here. But the thing is, if you're still getting some sound from before, even though it's soft, I know, you can cover up any. In other words, I would pedal more and just make sure that you have good voicing on that melodic note, and that's going to cover up any of the dirty edges, if that makes any sense. If you don't play that melodic note enough, you're going to hear the remnants of before. I would actually maybe pedal from the 8th note before you're supposed to change, and just make sure that I cover the dirt with a really good melodic note that's ringing. Does that make sense? I was going to mention that. It was a small thing, not a big deal, but there's these gaps in the melodic sound. It's because there's no way to do it like with your fingers. You just have to pedal more and better voicing. That's going to be the key for that. Better voicing means way more exact voicing than you think. Everything else, like to the floor and the melody, it's pianissimo. Melody might need to be mezzo forte or something. And that's very indicative of the Russian style, to have this soul entity surrounded by like lots of other, soft music, yeah? So don't be afraid of bringing out the melody a little bit more. So that'll help, okay? Yeah, terrific, you sound great. Yeah. Great. Do some Chopin now. Yeah. Let's see. Which edition do you have? Is it Henley?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay. Do you know the Ekier edition by chance? No. Okay. So for any Chopin, I definitely recommend that you at least check out this edition by Jan Ekier. Have you ever heard of the name Ekier? E-K-I-E-R. I'll send it to you after, and you should take a look, okay? But let's hear the piece. Sure, thanks. sounded great. Sounded great. So it's an amazing ballade, right? And you know who it's dedicated to, right? Schumann? Robert Schumann? Yeah. So it's actually a really funny story with like Robert Schumann and Frédéric Chopin is that Schumann was a huge fan of Chopin's, and he would actually write Chopin letters saying, I admire your music so much, I love your music. And Schumann would send his music to Chopin and say, can you look at my music? And actually Chopin kind of thought Schumann was this annoying younger man that was just bothering him all the time. So actually Schumann didn't always pay him much mind until one time, Chopin finally said, I wrote a piece for you, Robert, take a look. And Robert, he was looking at it and literally Robert was like, I'm so honored, this piece is so amazing. But at the time, Chopin was also trying to tell Robert something about himself, which was he was struggling with his two different personalities. Robert Schumann suffered from bipolarism, specifically with Eusebius and Florestan, these two personalities. And Chopin was trying to say, look, do you see what I'm trying to show you about yourself? But Robert's like, this is perfectly me. This is everything that I imagine, myself to be in music. So he was so flattered, and Chopin was like, I don't think he understood what I was trying to tell him, basically with this piece. So I always find that kind of amusing, but it's a very, very serious work and one of the great pieces Chopin wrote. The one thing that we do want to note, though, is that whenever Chopin's writing octaves, empty octaves, he's actually trying to speak more than he's trying to sing. So think about like, from like the Ballade number 1, or even right here. So with that opening with just octaves, we don't want to be singing them too much just yet. Does that make sense? So with this whole opening, sometimes I felt like when there was these kind of more empty octaves, you were kind of bringing too much importance to them, actually, when actually we could maybe have them more smooth. And actually sometimes, the thing about music is that with dynamics, it took me a while to understand this, but sometimes with dynamics, it's better to stay the exact same dynamic than it is to get too loud or too soft. And this opening, this page, is one of those examples. For example, I was hearing a little bit too much, I'm just gonna kind of exaggerate, like, I was hearing too many dynamics, actually. And with this opening, we want to keep it much more still. And actually it's almost like you need to memorize that speed of attack that you're keeping for the keystroke, and you need to just kind of stay there and slightly increase the speed of attack, slightly decrease it, much more gradually than I think you were doing. Does that make sense? So the dynamics could actually be a little smaller in scale on this page to really bring out the presto, yeah? So I'd love to hear this opening again, and I'd love to actually have you focus on something that we don't usually do, which is just try to keep the exact same dynamic, the same speed of attack. Can you try this opening one more time? Yeah, that's already better. We have to be careful of some notes, and it might be the piano, might be our own selves. But sometimes I hear. Do you notice that, or is that? Yeah, a little bit. It's okay if you don't, because I sometimes it's hard. Things like this are actually the best reason to record oneself. Because these are the things that I don't notice about my own playing, and usually it takes me putting my phone or something a little bit away and listening and saying, is my dynamic exactly, in this bucket of sound, and am I doing, is it right here? Am I having that pop out or not? Sometimes you listen to your teacher, listen to your recording, and just double check that, because this B flat is tending to pop out almost every time. And if we notice that, that means to really fight that urge to poke it out. This piano might be a little bit bright on that B flat, especially after the Prelude. He gave that B flat a lot of juice. So so that B flat might be a little hot, but we can still. it should be a slightly more, prayerful, a little bit more, just pastoral, I think. Does that make sense? But the opening was much better. It's very similar to the, for Ballade number 4. Similar is that this is a music that's starting before we actually begin playing. So we want to think about there's a train going, and then it's going dun. And we just kind of lightly join it as we're going. Instead of thinking like that, we want to feel. Does that make sense? Can you think about that and start this beginning one more time and be careful that B flat. That's already much better. It's already much nicer. And hopefully, in some ways, it might be even feeling a little bit easier that you're actually letting the piano and the music kind of do the work for you. And I don't want you adding much to it, here. The other thing just to keep in mind is that we want to try to have I'll give you your scores so you can actually follow along. When we got these melodic notes, make sure that we don't get. Try to have. Do you hear how that G is ringing over? And I'm listening. I'm really listening to that G. That's my job. To the F. I don't want to necessarily hear a melody that he didn't write. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's something to be careful of in this piece, because actually, if we always are feeling dan, tan, tan, it's going to get notey and repetitive really quickly. But he gives us subtle differences. That simplicity of the melody, that almost like innocence, is what we're really trying to get after here. And by removing and hiding some of these eighth notes and then letting the melody ring and soar over it, it's going to sound way more sophisticated, actually. So whenever you see that melodic note, like a dotted quarter, do not fall into temptation of making that too much. And again, the way you practice this is sometimes it's important to practice ugly to get something nice. So I would practice like this. Very ugly, but you could very clearly see what my voicing was, right? So I'm practicing that, and then I'm going to do a little bit less. Can we try, you don't have to exaggerate it right now, but I'd love to really feel those long notes. So can you start from like right here? And Yeah, nice. I mean, by the way, the left pedal is going to be your friend. I noticed you didn't use too much left pedal in this piece, but I'm trying to diffuse that third. I'm trying to diffuse that third, and I'm using the left pedal to help soften the blow of that. So that's, the thing about the left pedal is that, just because we use it and I put it down now, we can still get a lot of sound. It's not a soft pedal. It helps us play soft, but what it does is it helps us find color more than anything, yeah? So the left pedal here, I'm trying to find this very special color, and I'm trying to hide that third, and the left pedal is going to help us with that. So I would try to do that. Now, you might say, okay, I put the left pedal down, and now my melody's not singing. It's too soft. That means that when you put the left pedal down, it's like you're putting some cloud, some fog. Your melody needs a little bit more sharpness to it to cut through the fog. So sometimes we have to adjust our speed of attack depending on how the left pedal is functioning, yeah? So I would use the left pedal because this piano has a very immediate sound, and I don't think we're going to get that hidden third without the left pedal on this piano. Can you try one more time and use the left pedal? Okay, so that was already better. Did you hear how it rang over and we actually heard a strong separation? That's something to work on, I would say, with all of these passages. And again, it's much better, instead of trying with your voicing to kind of push out and make something more, and just a little bit more, it's better to go way too much and then a little less. So again, you want to do a little bit less. So I would recommend practicing like that in those types of levels. Yeah, better to go out and then do this than do that. So that's important for us to think about. And then let's see here. So a few other things that we can talk about in the presto. And if you have a question, I'll look for one in maybe 5 minutes if you have any questions. But I do want to bring to your attention that what's most important is the wind that we get in the left hand, like all these, you know, making sure that these octaves actually are a lot softer at the beginning and crescendo more. These crescendos are a little bit misleading. He writes a crescendo from the very first note, and most people, what they do is they start getting louder, like right when they see the crescendo. But you want to start thinking about getting louder and actually getting louder later. You know, with these crescendos, I think if you delay them at least one beat, they're going to become more effective, yeah, and they're going to have more of a surge to them. And if with these crescendos as well, instead of thinking like, you know, if you think about like just those two waypoints, the beginning note, and then if you think about those two things, it's going to make it much more encapsulated. Does that make sense? But I feel like you might be thinking about 12 different things, 12 different notes, or 10 different notes, I guess, rather than two things. I'm thinking about the first note and the last note, last two notes in this. Is that what you're thinking about? Are you trying to? Yep. But let's try the presto one more time, maybe. And for all of these left-hand slurs, let's really try to begin basically much softer whenever we're crescendoing, okay? And delay the crescendo. Can you try one more time? Yeah, so the other thing is this, so with these octaves, you know, I do see a little bit of verticality in your octaves. You know, I see a little bit too much of that, where you're placing them nicely, but sometimes we have to kind of use our imagination and try to just imagine if the hand was just as horizontal as possible, you know. So try to just think about the hand being a little bit more horizontal. You'll find out that if it's more horizontal and closer to the keys, that yeah, you won't be able to be as loud. That's also okay, because you can save the verticality for the ending. So I want you to be changing actually how you're attacking the key to also help the dynamic. So you see how my shape was changing of the hand as I went up? Instead of just all equal. If you do the same stroke and the same equal motion, you'll probably get the same sound. So we have to change and vary that up. So try to think more like about the hand being glued to the key, and then when you want to bring out the crescendo, more verticality, okay? Can we try one more time? Maybe a little under tempo, because I am throwing a lot of things at you right now. Do a little slower. It's already sounding better, you know, so what I would say is make sure to, you know, when we're trying to do things at the piano, it's not like random or wishing or hoping that something will happen. Sometimes physically we have to do certain things. And to make these octaves I mean, let's be realistic about it. If we want our octaves to pop out, we need a little bit more of this entry into the key, right? If we don't want them to pop out, we want to stay closer to the key and have less of this vertical approach. So that's something actually to practice slowly and build that kind of muscle memory into your body so that you get rid of thinking about each one of them vertically. We want to think about, and it's good to practice them slowly. It's good to practice it slowly to kind of remap some of that muscular system, okay? But a lot of this was also good. There's two moments really to make sure of. Later on, it's what Mussorgsky does a lot in his piece when he's doing things like you're singing and then suddenly you stop, and he does this in here at Chopin. That moment's very, very amazing because it's like you lost your train of thought, and you freeze, and then you suddenly go into this next section. And it's very important, and I circled it because the silence is often more important than the notes themselves. So I recommend just choreographing that slightly, having your hand come up, freeze, and then just kind of melt into the next thing. And that's something that we could maybe try a little bit more. I'll let you try that on your own at home, but really, really note that that's, for me, one of my favorite moments in this piece is when he just kind of trails off. But one thing to note for sure is when we get to this rest, this rest around bar 111, we do want to really collectively feel this dom, da, tam. We want to feel that rest and really want to really kind of take a breath before launching into this next section. So what we want to really feel is that rest there. And then also the second time that it happens, we also want to feel it there too. Can we try a little bit of that? Where you basically take a little bit more time for the rest to really show the audience that there's a rest. Can you try somewhere leading up to it? Maybe somewhere around there? That's already better. Make sure we're not double dotting too much. I'm getting a little bit dun, 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 ta, ta, ta. I know it's stretto, I know it's più mosso, I know it's crescendo, all these things, but when we're singing a line, dotted notes and more, the danger of double dotting, in other words, doing too short, it becomes a little less melodious. I wouldn't double dot too much. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but I'd probably do a little bit more. I would sing a little bit more, I would say. Yeah, that's just something that could help us. And again, that rest happens in 136 as well. Okay? And let's see here. A lot of this, so for the coda, tell me about the coda. The coda's pretty tricky, right? Do you have any specific questions about that, or do you want to hear some advice about that? Yeah.
I just have a little bit of trouble with the faster notes, but
Yeah. I mean, certainly I can tell that. I can tell that you can play this, but definitely with this particular coda, whenever we've got all these, we've got these repeated notes. You always want to. Sometimes I felt like what you were doing was you're always starting immediately at the tempo, rather than orbiting around the tempo. So in other words, when we've got like basically constant chords, we need to be finding lots of places to take a little bit of time. And I'm starting always a little bit slower, a little bit under where I'm trying to go with the tempo. And that's going to help me create the illusion, actually, of motion forward. It's going to create the illusion that I'm virtuosic, and it's also going to make things a lot easier. But sometimes I felt like you were just like, instead of, there can be a lot more of this micro rubato in this coda. maybe you've already heard this before, so it's maybe not new information, but I would, in my practice, really exaggerate that, like, and really practice really slowly at the beginning and then speeding up, yeah? Is this something that you've been working on at all or thinking about? Yeah? Can I hear you maybe do more of this? Try the coda and try to think about each phrase, just starting it a little bit slower, which gives you some time for the wheels to really click in. So, I mean, that's something definitely to just kind of keep on working on and keep in the back of your mind. Because the problem with passages like this, actually, is that a lot of us will sometimes get the metronome out and we'll just try to like drill it and get it better. And the metronome, I love the metronome. I use it all the time. But sometimes you have to understand that there's a point when the tempo is going to basically break. And it's not going to work anymore, and the only way you're going to be able to play is by really building in and imprinting rubato onto the passage work. And this is very common in Chopin. And a big, big problem and misconception that I see happen all the time with people is they'll play this coda at like, I don't know, tempo 80 or something. They'll pick a number. And then they'll go perform it, and it won't really work. And they'll say, like, what was the problem? Like, I know it at 80, I'm trying to play it at 80, and the problem is that when you're trying to be more expressive and you're trying to sing this and you're trying to do all these different things, if you haven't really imprinted the rubato into the music, you're going to kind of, the wheels are going to fall off a lot. So I don't know if you use metronome? Yeah, yeah. So just be, I mean, if I was going to put the metronome on right now and I'm going to turn up the volume a little bit, and if I was going to use that, I would really be practicing with rubato. I would use rubato with the metronome, like, and try to build that in that way, in addition to just doing this. Honestly, if you practice just like this all the time, you're not going to get where we need to go. We need to... You hear how I'm like circling a little bit around the tempo? That's going to be very important for us to actually do, okay? So you might have to go a little bit slower, but what I want you to do is use the metronome and use it in a different way. You can still practice kind of more just straight ahead, but start doing rubato work with the metronome. And that is where you really are circling and orbiting. And you're probably going to find that it's hard or it's challenging, and that's going to be the room for growth that I think will take this maybe to the next level as well. So, and then just my last comment is for all these things in Chopin, like all this stuff later on, in general, it's going to break if you ever are applying too much effort and force and more. You have to, whenever your hands compromise and basically your hands being stretched open for bars at a time, you have to just kind of accept that and say, the left hand is going to be the power, the right hand is the texture. Yeah? I felt like sometimes you were trying to apply power to the right hand and the left hand became texture, when it should be the opposite. Does that make sense? So in other words, like, again, you were trying to play fortissimo, some of this stuff that really isn't meant to be fortissimo. Chopin's notorious for this. He writes things that Liszt is not, because Liszt is the opposite. Liszt will typically write music that when you apply force to it, it typically just kind of becomes maybe sometimes better because it's built that way. But Chopin is much more subtle at times, and we can't break him by applying force to things that don't qualify for it. Does that make sense? So play this stuff a lot softer than you are. It's not the melodicism that you think it is. It's going to be the left hand that's going to really help drive things forward. Does that make sense? Yeah, so you're working a little too hard in some of this coda passage. And then the rubato practice with the metronome, and I think that might be able to help you a lot with this particular ending. And then personally, I mean, it's totally up to you. The ending, I'm not sure I would roll it personally, but it's totally up to you. I know there's different ways of doing it, but I do kind of like the severity of a chord being just boom. But it's totally up to you on that. Because actually, it's beautiful both ways. But I would not discount what a chord just being like, what that can do. You know, just like that. Yeah, that can be interesting as well. Depends on your mood. Practice both, and then depending on how you feel when you perform this piece, you can choose one or the other. Okay? Cool. Well, sounds great. So. Well, thanks, guys. I mean, it's been a pleasure to listen to the two wonderful students and play for you guys today. I know I have a little bit of time, so just out of curiosity, has anyone here heard of tone bass ever before? A few people? Yeah. Okay, yeah, wonderful. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. Tone Bass is an education company that is based in Los Angeles. We have our studio in downtown LA. We have studios in Boston and Germany as well. And I'm the head of piano for that platform. And if any of you are curious, we do have a real-life event with Garrick Olson, myself, Noah Hardaway, Magdalena Pachevska, all these different wonderful faculty in Los Angeles at the end of May. So if you're curious about that and want to maybe attend, visit, observe, and more, you can always let me know, after the event. But yeah, tone bass, this has been something that I've been part of for a number of years now. I joined about 5 years ago, I guess. And before me, there was a wonderful pianist in front of mine, Ben Laudy, who was the head of piano for a number of years. And we worked together to kind of bring this platform to as many audiences as possible. And I know probably some of you know Ben's YouTube videos, which are pretty amazing stuff, analyzing Yun-Chan Lim and Horowitz and all these great videos. But definitely something that we've just been really passionate about over the years is just trying to bring the highest level education to as many people as possible, through an online medium. But now, especially in the last 6 months, in real life, bringing faculty from all over together and trying to bring all of our members and community together in one place to study and learn. So, tone bass has been developing a lot since I've first joined, and it's been really a pleasure to continue to grow with it. And a lot of the things, honestly, that I'm talking about today are things that I've learned watching tone bass videos, working with students myself, and just kind of observing all the wonderful artists, hundreds of them that come through, whether they're flutists, whether they're violinists, pianists, and more. And so I don't know if any of you guys have any questions about tone bass or not, but it's really been a lot of fun to try to bring the highest quality content and video and hopefully education to everybody. I've got a number of different courses on tone bass, whether it's scales from beginner to virtuoso, arpeggios, trills, and more. So there's so much stuff that you can check out. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me personally, and I'd be happy to talk to you guys more about tone bass and more. But do you have any questions? Yeah?
Does it have a search function? So if you're working on a certain technical problem, you could just search that and then find?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, on tone bass, one of the things that I recommend, certainly, is go to the search bar and be like, what am I worried about? I always like to think about that. What am I worried about most? Trills scare me. So I type in trills, and you're going to find all the things that are going to come up for you. Whether it's live streams with myself, where I'm talking in the moment with people about passage work, Mozart, Bach, Chopin, or whether it's fully fledged courses with Seymour Bernstein, Leon Fleischer, and more, talking about how to interpret that aspect. So we have all these different types of things, and we're actually going to also be launching a new platform in springtime called Tone Bass Music, which deals with how to compose, how to record yourself, how to use technology, how to understand more about history, literature, theory, and many other aspects of music that aren't necessarily instrument specific, but are just generally well-rounded that we should know about, where to put a microphone, maybe not right there when we're going to record ourselves, but putting it all over the hall and more. There's all these different lessons that, I guess exist on this upcoming platform. But any other questions? You guys are you very good audience today, so thanks for, thanks for listening to everything that I've had to say. So thanks a lot. Feel free to come up and say hello if you guys have any more questions, but it's been a pleasure, so thanks a lot. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just to encourage me, what about questions that aren't necessarily tone-based?
Oh, yeah.
That may be what you thought he was asking. Do you have any just questions about pianism or anything that came up in the class or that you noticed in Dominic's playing?
I really like the last piece that you played.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Would like for you to play the movements you were doing.
Yeah, yeah.
For those, do you just like think of stuff in a moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the pictures at an exhibition, you know, that piece definitely has a story involved, right? The paintings, I mean, sometimes when I'm playing, I actually have the paintings displayed on like on a big screen or something. But definitely I am thinking about, you know, the story, right? And thinking about trying to embody Baba Yaga or this great gate of Kiev or this, you know, the children playing and more. So for me, imagery is very important. Ironically, I'm actually a very visual person. So for me, it matters a lot what's going on in the mind's eye. So, and sometimes I'm just trying to see, like, where's the note I need to find? So there's a little bit of that too. So, yeah, good question though.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's also an observation. I mean, you have such beautiful control of your sound. When I heard you play this like this at Chaconne as well, I was so blown away by the quality of your forte fortissimo, triple forte, and your ability to just sort of conjure that sound and get it up out of the instrument. Was there, I saw you studied with Andre Michel Schmuÿle.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to do with that? Like, if you,
Yeah.
because you remind me a little bit
I
of
bet.
watching him play.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've studied with a lot of different people. Andre Michel Schmuÿle was a wonderful pianist who had studied with Rudolf Serkin, and absolutely, I learned pictures with him. You know, back when I was at Manhattan School of Music, and definitely, you know, it does come down to that idea that I was talking to, let's see, Max about how, you know, to really get that sound. I mean, even with your arms right now, you're doing this kind of thing, and you need to play the piano like that. You need to be, you know, it's no different than if you go up to a bell, and if you know, like that, there's not much, but like, you know, that kind of effect of the ricochet, getting the sound out like that, that's how I get that sound, really. It takes practice, it takes the comfort of just knowing that your hand's gonna be there. And honestly, I also get a lot of inspiration from like watching someone like Argerich play. Because when you look at her play, it looks like she's just throwing her hands around. It's just like this. And frankly, when you throw your hand like that, you can get great sound. I mean, you gotta hit the right note. But that sentiment of just like this, you know, that freedom, the release, there's no tension in the arm, everything's vibrating, your body's vibrating, the piano's vibrating, you're not stopping any impact, you're just letting everything ring. That's all compounding to hear what you're hearing when I do what I do. And then also, again, it's all about pacing and deciding how excited am I. I'm excited. I'm more excited. I'm so excited. And then I'm just, you know really playing certain notes in that manner. So that attitude really matters the most. Because I can tell you physically how to do something, but if your attitude isn't correct, it's going to be hard to get that sound, I would say. So you got to want that sound and chase it, and you might be able to get that. That's kind of the real answer, is the attitude, and then combined with the physical approach. So yeah, good. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you.